Welcome, everyone. We would invite you to find a seat. And this is probably a good time to shut the sound off your phone as well. And as you're doing that, you've been listening to some of the music that Brenda loved and that her family loved about Brenda. And her family has requested certain songs for the service, including the following.
So I was the one who wanted the Lord. You were the one who called astray. A beautiful face without a name for so long. A beautiful smile to hide the pain. Do you ever know that you're my
Let us pray.
Hey, what up?
If we might ask everyone to find a seat, we would be most grateful. We'll wait while you do. If you could find a seat, please, we would be most grateful. Thank you. Dear God, we acknowledge your presence and power as we come together to celebrate the life of our dear friend and loved one, Brenda Sue Ondejko. This beautiful soul has blessed us, and we give thanks for the loving, joyful presence, the welcoming, caring life of service, the amazing, delicious food creations, and the loyal dedication to family and friends that fills her spirit. We know that your loving arms enfold Brenda and that she is ever one with you. With a deep sense of gratitude for her part in our lives, we allow our love for her to express as we join together in the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen. We're all here because in a special way, Brenda Ondejko has touched us. And we want to celebrate her life and pay tribute to her spirit, sharing no doubt both tears of loss and tears of laughter as we honor her. And we're here to affirm our faith in the one eternal life we all share as we bless Brenda on her way to her next life experience. So our gathering is both a rededication of our hearts and minds to the high truth of every person's completeness in God, and the assurance that Brenda is safe and secure in the infinite and perfect plan of God. We also gather to remove from our hearts any fear or anxiety that we might have about this last and greatest earthly experience. The passing of a loved one rightfully brings a deep sense of loss and often a feeling that something has somehow gone wrong in the divine plan. Quite naturally, we grieve, and we may feel separated from our loved one. And yet, we know that Brenda's loved ones continue to have a deep connection with her spirit. As each of us releases Brenda's human form, let's remember that the body in which she lived for a time is not the reality of the one you loved. Let's be clear that only Brenda's body has died. Her spirit, that part of her which is eternal, that part of her which will live on in your minds and hearts, can never die. One of the greatest challenges we all meet is the challenge of change. Surely one of the greatest changes and the most mysterious of all changes is the one we call death. We may approach this time of readjustment by turning to the presence of God within ourselves, allowing God, or whatever name we give the divine presence, to speak to us this day in a way that is uniquely appropriate to our individual understanding. We can take comfort in the words of the Master Teacher, Jesus Christ, as written in the Gospel of John. When Jesus told his disciples that he was going away, Simon Peter asked, "Lord, where are you going?" Jesus answered, "Where I am going, you cannot follow me now, but you shall follow afterward." He didn't say you may. He said you shall. The disciples didn't understand, and they were filled with grief. And then Jesus spoke again and said, "In my Father's house are many mansions, and if it were not so, would I have told you that I go to prepare a place for you? And when I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and will take you to myself, that where I am, you may be also." And Jesus here is speaking as the Christ, God's presence that is always within each one of us. And Jesus said further, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. Not as the world gives do I give to you. Let not your hearts be troubled, neither let them be afraid." In line with the teaching of Jesus, we can know that when our time here on earth is over, we will be welcomed into the divine realm by a loving, supportive God to an unbelievably wonderful, ongoing life where we will reunite with Brenda. You see, life can never end, because life is of God and God is eternal. What happens when an individual goes through the experience we call death? As people long ago used the term, dead meant not here, present in another place. Death is simply the separation of a soul from a particular body. The body is the clothing that the soul has worn for a time. In this process called death, the soul is discarded, and the clothing is discarded, and the soul of Brenda has gone on to its next experience in divine unfoldment. When death comes, life is changed, not taken away. We know that although Brenda Ondejko is no longer physically in our sight, she lives and is now experiencing another of God's many mansions. Certainly no one on this side of the curtain we call death can adequately describe the death experience, but one writer has brought comfort to many with these words entitled, "There is no death." I am standing on the seashore. A ship at my side spreads her white sails to the morning breeze and starts for the blue ocean. The ship is an object of beauty and strength, and I stand and watch her until at length she is just a speck of white where the sea and the sky come to mingle with each other. Then someone at my side says, "There she's gone." Gone where? Gone from my sight, that is all. The ship is just as large in mast and hull and spar as she was when she left my side, and she is just as able to carry her load of living weight to her destined harbor. The ship's diminished size is in me, not in her. And just at the moment when someone at my side says, "There, she's gone," there are other eyes watching her coming, and other voices ready to take up the glad shout, "There she comes!" And that is dying. This is right in line with the eternally positive, joyful nature of Brenda's spirit, as expressed in this next song.
And he
We want to acknowledge some of the special persons in Brenda's life. Brenda's loving spirit and presence will forever live in the hearts and minds of her loved ones, who include her deceased parents, Kenneth and Georgia Toombs, Brenda's deceased sister and brother-in-law, Phyllis and Patrick Current, Brenda's adult children, Dawn and husband John Regan, Brenda's son Robert and wife Patty Wagner, daughter Gaynell, and husband Steve Curtis. 9 grandchildren: Michael, Cassandra, Seth, Nathan, Nicholas, Zachary, Emmett, Dylan, and Cameron, including their spouses. 5 great-grandchildren: Harriet, Everett, Margot, Jack, Jameson, and one on the way. Nieces and nephews: William, Kelly, Tracy, and Alex. And we do want to welcome at this time grandson Nate Wagner, who will share a prayer with us. That was a favorite of his grandmother.
I think the reference is not favorite grandson, it was favorite. Okay, so this poem is called Anyway by Mother Teresa. People are often unreasonable, illogical, and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. If you are kind, people may accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Be kind anyway. If you are successful, you will win some false friends and some true enemies. Succeed anyway. If you are honest and frank, people may cheat you. Be honest and frank anyway. What you spend years building, someone could destroy overnight. Build anyway. If you find serenity and happiness, they may be jealous. Be happy anyway. The good you do today, people will often forget tomorrow. Do good anyway. Give the world the best you have, and it may never be enough. Give the best anyway. You see, in the final analysis, it is between you and your God. It was never between you and them anyway.
Thank you, Nate. Grandson Michael Regan.
Just regular grandson Mike Regan, I guess. This is the Prayer of St. Francis, which was a favorite of Graham's. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. And where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O divine, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Amen.
Thank you, Michael. Nephew, Alex Current.
Thank you. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Alex Current. Brenda's my great aunt, sister of my grandmother, Phyllis. I'm so honored and humbled to be able to stand up here and share some of my thoughts and experiences with my sweet Aunt Brenda, whose impact was not only wide, but very deep. And my heart hurts that she's no longer with us in physical form. There's so much beauty in what she brought to this world and is still bringing, that I want to try and focus on to honor her life today. So there's a poem written that often comes up at services like this one called The Dash. I'm not going to read it today because Dawn told me I only had 2 hours to get up here and speak. The joke kills every time. Okay. But the theme is based around this. So we all have a day we're born and a day that will pass. But the dash in the middle is the most important part. It's the part where we have impact and influence on what happens in our lives and those around us. And my next statement is as sincere as it is big. I don't know if anybody had a more significant dash than Aunt Brenda. She had such a unique way of connecting with people, and it didn't matter who you were or where you were. Brenda made you feel like no matter what was going on, you were the most important person. You always had her full attention, and you usually had it for the next several hours. And Brenda just taught me the importance of investing time in the people that you care about. And she invested heavily in those that she loved. Now there's family members here in this room that I've never met or just met last night for the first time in a long time because of distance, age gaps, timing, etc. But I knew about them because Aunt Brenda would tell me every single detail of their lives, even if I didn't know who she was talking about. She knew the information because she invested the time, but she shared it because of the pure pride that she had in her family. Now, if you're sitting here today, I have to assume that at some point Aunt Brenda had fed you. And if we did a show of hands, which I won't do today, I would bet that most of you would say she even sent you home with leftovers. And then some. Now, I'm certain that food was her love language, and we were all the recipients of a little bit too much Aunt Brenda love. Now, I have to admit something. In all of the conversations I had with Aunt Brenda, there was one thing that always made me incredibly jealous. And it's just 3 words. And it's Grandma Brenda Thursdays. It always sounded like the best time. And it was something I knew she took a lot of pride in. She was going to show love through this weekly meal for as long as she could. She didn't care how many people showed up. She was going to be there. And some of the best memories I have of Aunt Brenda are in the kitchen, with her and my grandma cooking up the classics. And it was always like this unspoken competition between the two of them because they were always so polite to each other that they would try and out-cook each other. It resulted in way too much food. They used all the butter. And they left everyone at the table debating on how far their pants could stretch. Now, I know everybody in this room is feeling some pain in her loss, but I'm really concerned about the local Costco. I don't know if they're going to make it. Now, the last time I got to see Aunt Brenda was in November. So I was in East Tennessee for vacation. I had heard her health was not doing so well, and she was starting to slow down. So on my last day of the trip, I woke up at 5 a.m. I started the 2.5-hour drive to her apartment in North Carolina, and I told her I just wanted to see her and spend some time talking to her. So obviously the first thing she mentioned was the breakfast that we were going to be having. She said, we're going to have it in the dining hall, and I agreed. As I knew she was slowing down, I specifically told her not to cook anything. I was very clear about this. I even told her I would buy breakfast as a way to sweeten the pot, but somehow I knew she didn't believe me. So when I showed up, I could smell that fresh-made sausage gravy to go with the biscuits, and the platter of fruit, and the 3/4 of the Danish that she wasn't supposed to open until I got there. And I pretended like I was upset that she went through all that trouble for me, but we both knew that was exactly what I wanted. And I cherish every moment that I had with Aunt Brenda, but especially this one. And one of the greatest things about Aunt Brenda was the strength of her faith. Later in life, we spoke a lot about her relationship with God, the Bible studies that she was a part of, and how she handled the stress of grief and loss. And I learned so much from her and knew that when she said she was going to pray for me, she was going to. And I was going to see movement in my life because of her. When my grandma was sick, Aunt Brenda's voice was the one that I needed to hear. Now, she told me about this dream that she had years prior. It was after her mother, Grandma Georgia, passed. She was struggling without her, and she asked God to give her a sign. And so one night she had this dream that off in the distance she saw this bench. And it was just the back of two heads on this bench. And she walked up to it, and as she got closer, she knew this was her mom and dad. This is Georgia and Kenny. And as they got closer, Papa Kenny turned his head around and said, "Hey, Bren, we're doing just fine." And that was it. That was what she needed. She said after that she could process it and she was doing good. And that stuck with her for over 25 years. And while we feel the pain down here of the loss of those that went before us, I think about that bench. And I think about how lively that bench is today. How much laughter there is, how much food there is, and all the love that's being shared. Now, before this trip to North Carolina, I thought I'd have a really hard time seeing her. I thought I would see her and be sad as she nears the end of her dash. I thought I would worry about her upcoming appointments, her mobility, or really any differences in her, because she was so consistent her whole life. But a funny thing happened. When I looked at her, I just saw the same Aunt Brenda I've always known. I could see my grandma in her. I could see Grandma Georgia in her. I could see Dawn and Gaynell and RC and all these grandkids that she talks so much about. She always represented so much more than her. She always represented her whole family, everything she did. And I was talking with Dawn a few weeks ago, and we were talking about how hard it was without her. But she was starting to feel connected again. I was tearing up in the car because as I spoke to Dawn, I could hear Aunt Brenda in her voice, in her laugh, and in her presence. And that's the beautiful thing. The legacy that she left behind is to everyone here in this room and beyond. And just a little bit of Brenda embedded in me. It's the legacy that will continue to impact generations. And it's all rooted in love and leftovers.
Alex, thank you. Daughter Dawn Regan.
Hi, everyone. I just want to thank you so much for coming and celebrating and honoring my mom, Brenda. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dawn. I'm the oldest of her children, and I've had the privilege of knowing her for 60 years. I don't think there's anyone else in this room who's known her longer besides my dad, Paul, and my cousin, Bill, AKA Butch. There's so many facets of my mom's life that I could talk about. I could talk about her love of family, her love of friends, her love of babies, her love of cooking and sharing her cooking, and her love of gardening and beautiful flowers, her love of books. I could talk about mostly her love of God and all the generous gifts he had given her. And she was God was so big to her, she saw him in all the ordinary daily things. She would see him in a sunrise, and she would see him when a flower opened up, and she would see him in the changing of the seasons. She would talk about it. She would see him in the smell of rain. And as I was trying to come up with the words to portray how big her love of life was, I came upon a note that she had received from a new neighbor in Black Mountain, North Carolina, where she had moved last September. And I'm going to read it, but a little insight into that note is that she had only spent a few lunches with this woman. Every Sunday, the people from her area of the apartment complex would get together in a common room and bring a lunch, and they would talk about their week and what was going on. And so she had only known Barbara, the woman who wrote the note, for 5 or 6 lunches before she got too ill to join them. So this is Barbara's note. Dear neighbor Brenda, do you know that neighbor means nearby? I want you to know that since you've moved here from Michigan, I have been aware of your beautiful garden and your neighborly family, and especially Harriet, the beautiful granddaughter we'd all like to kidnap. You made me some radiant vegetable soup. I described the soup as radiant because you were radiant as you gave it to me. I think of you shining at all of us on the hall as if you know a grand secret, and I think you do. I hold you close, good neighbor, good radiant giver of vegetable soup. We are all privileged to know you and your family. Love, Barbara, in B16, nearby. I share with you this note because it tells the big story of my mom in a nutshell. When she says, I think of you shining at all of us, she's seen my mom's light. That light comes from her love of God and her ability to let it shine through her. My mom could take just regular old vegetable soup and turn it into radiant vegetable soup because she put love into the making of that soup. My mom did know a secret. She knew how to take the love of God and let it shine through her. And like a moth to light, it drew us to her. My sister and I had the privilege of caring for my mom until she passed. And that's a whole nother story. But after she passed, things went really dark for me. Everything was very heavy, and I felt so lost. I really struggled under this huge weight of grief. It was as if a light had been blown out. I knew it was normal to grieve, but I could barely get my feet to move. Then, on February 3rd, she died December 16th, so it had been a while, I woke up to a bird singing his little heart out. And as I lie in bed, I instantly thought, hi Mom, you're right, it's a beautiful day. Then I got up and walked out of the bedroom, and the amaryllis bulb that my sister had brought in early December, and we had tried to get to bloom in December and January even, suddenly I walked out and there it was blooming. And I said, oh Mom, you're beautiful. And that's when it hit me. I had been focusing on her absence, on the fact that I couldn't see her and I couldn't touch her. And for some reason, suddenly, I could now see her in everything. A bird song, a beautiful flower blooming, a newborn baby, even radiant vegetable soup. And I didn't know this. I'd like to close with a poem that my daughter-in-law Jeannie wanted me to share, and it sums all this up. And actually, you just heard it from Pastor Ron, because we didn't do very good at that. But it's so good that I'm going to say it again. I am standing upon the seashore, and a ship's at my side, and spreads her white sails to the moving breeze, and starts for the ocean. She's an object of beauty and strength. I stand and I watch her until, at length, she hangs like a speck of white cloud, just where the sea and the sky come and mingle together. And then someone shouts at my side. No, and then someone says at my side, there, she's gone. Gone where? Gone from my sight. That's all. She's just as large in mast and hull and spar as she was when she left my side. And she is just as able to bear her load of living freight to her new destined port. Her diminished size is in me, not in her. And just at the moment when someone says, there, she's gone, there are other eyes watching her coming, and other voices ready to take up the glad shout. Here she comes! and that is time. My mom isn't gone. She's just out of our sight. But I now see and feel her every day. I hear her in the morning when I see a beautiful sunrise, when a bird sings, when a rose opens its new petals, in the smell of a newborn baby, and even in a bowl of radiant vegetable soup. Thank you.
Dawn, thank you so much for bringing to life the spirit of your dear mother. And it more than ever prompts us all to want to thank God for the gift of Brenda in this world. Well, we want to give every person who would like to have the opportunity to share something about Brenda to come to the open mic, and you're welcome to either come forward here, or Alex has agreed to bring the mic to you. If you would prefer, you can just raise your hand. Here you go, John.
You could have beat him, Alex.
Where's Seth at? Seth and Mike. My clock doesn't start till after the first part. For those who don't know, I'm John Regan. I am the husband of Dawn Regan, Brenda's oldest child. I'm also the proud father of Brenda's only biological granddaughter. Only by a lot of boys in this family. But Cassandra and her husband Paul are in Israel, couldn't make it today. But Cassie sent me something she wanted to read from her. So, my clock doesn't start yet, Mike. Quit looking at your watch. This is from Cass to her beloved grandmother. Thank you for teaching me the most important lessons in life, like how to love unconditionally, like how to make a real roux, how to stay kind through hardship, how to forgive, how to start again and again and again, how to make broth from scratch, how to make a meal out of whatever is left in the fridge, how to always, always be hospitable and make everyone feel like you've been waiting for them to arrive, how to make popcorn on the stove, how to really, truly belly laugh, how to throw a killer party, how to make space feel like safety and home, how to use every bit of chicken and not waste a morsel, how to get red wine stain out of white clothes. White wine's the secret. How silly it is to hold a grudge, how to grow and change and age well with a light heart, and how to rest. You also taught me that kindness is its own strength. It's never too late to learn something new, that you can always fit one more person, that there's simply no need to measure when you're cooking, that eating should be a joy, not a task, that there's always enough to go around, that there are never too many leftovers, that if you're missing an ingredient, you can always find a substitute, that sometimes you should grow things simply because they are beautiful, that anyone can be family if they're at the table, and finally, when to call it quits. She just signed it. I love you, Graham, from Cass. Everybody has cooking stories for Brenda. I'm going to tell you two short ones. They are on absolute opposite ends of the bookends. Is anybody here from DuPont, from Brenda's working days? Okay. Brenda used to tell me this, that somewhere around 82 or 83, she would go into her work colleagues at DuPont and say, my daughter in college is asking me to make extra loaves of banana bread. I think there's a guy behind it. Well, I'm fortunately that guy. And I ate her banana bread for about 6 months before I ever met the lady. And it worked. The other bookend is the last time I was in her house in Lake Orion. I was walking through the kitchen early in the morning, and she had 2 strips of bacon in a big pan. And if you've cooked at her house, she cooks bacon by the multiple pounds, not by 2 strips. And I said, Brenda, what's up there? She just smiled at me, moved the things to the side, and got the pancake batter out. And it's when I realized her pancakes, she uses bacon grease in order that they don't stick on the bottom. Pretty good. The real reason I wanted to share today is to make sure you know how many grandkids there are. The obituary tells the biological theme: loving mother Dawn and John, Bob Wagner, Patty, Gaynell Curtis, Steve, grandmother of Mike, Cassie, Seth, Nate, Nick, Zach, Emmett, Dylan, and Cameron. Great-grandmother of Harriet, Everett, Margot, Jameson, and Jack. That's what the obituary says. But let me introduce you to some people who also call her Grandma Brenda. Well, the obvious ones that are just missed in that biological obituary are Gabby, Maria, Brooke, Margaret, Abby, Shay, Jeannie, the lone guy, Paul, Katie, and Josh. Even though you didn't get to meet Grandma Brenda, you are going to get to know her for the rest of yours and Jamie's life, that's for sure. Well, those are the obvious ones. Let me introduce some of the non-obvious ones. About 20-some years ago, a little 11-year-old boy by the name of John Balea and his younger brother Jesse Balea walked into the Regan household, and it was a blessing, and it made us a better family. Well, the first time John and his little brother Jesse walked into Grandma Brenda's house, they became her grandkids too. And I know for a fact that Johnny and Jesse have never known her by any other name than Grandma Brenda. A little before that, or maybe just after that, 20 years ago, my dear friend John Worry and his wife Val, Dawn and I, all 4 of us are really good friends. We bought a cabin up north. 10 years of family fun, nothing but fun and adventure. Well, they have 2 children, Danielle and Trevor, who know Brenda by no other name other than Grandma Brenda. I even remember if one of us was going up, we'd take a head count between John and I, and John called back and said, I called Trevor at college. He wants to know if Grandma Brenda's coming up this weekend. So, my brother Pat and his wife are here today with their daughter Caitlin, one of their 2 children. They probably spent 15 Christmases at Grandma Brenda's house, at least 15. And I know Caitlin and her brother Shane only know my mother-in-law Brenda by the name Grandma Brenda. More grandkids. And the most recent addition, who actually might be considered a great-grandchild, Hamed Mohammed is what I'll call an adoptive child of our daughter Cassie and Paul, her son-in-law Paul, which immediately gave Dawn and I the honor to being, where's Hamed? Hamed's American grandparents. Well, that also meant he met Brenda. And Hamed has a great, great American grandmother that he only knows her by Grandma Brenda. In closing, I'll say 2 things. I watched a video that John Worry made for Brenda because he couldn't get down to see her. 3.5-minute video. I tried to pull things out of it just last week in the South Bend airport. I watched it over and over, and all I could do was wipe my eyes and cry. But I remember one thing John put in there, is that he was speaking to Brenda. He said, Brenda, you put joy in the word enjoyment. Joy in the word joyful. And that sums up my mother-in-law so well. John, she listened to that thing over and over and over. And finally, because I think other people put things in words better than I do, maybe a month ago, 3 weeks ago, Dawn and I got a card from my sister-in-law, Meg. It's signed by Pat and Meg. It's in her writing. And it says, and I will tell you, whoever wrote it, thank you, Meg, every word is perfect. Every comma is perfect. I'm going to read it. John and Dawn, I've been thinking about you and Brenda the last 6 weeks, mulling over the influence she had on our lives. She was welcoming, loving, encouraging. She shared her home with us. She fed our bodies and our spirits. She was fun and knowledgeable about so many things. She taught some of them to me, like limes in the microwave and Grandma George's coconut cake. She also expanded the palates of our kids. A wonderful woman. We are so blessed to be part of her sphere. Love, Pat and Meg. And I would just tell you that if our good Lord blesses us as much as Brenda did, we're all in great shape. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Would anyone else like to share? Raise your hand and we'll bring the mic to you, or you can come forward as you choose.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you. My name is Lynn Bird, and I am Bob Wagner's sister-in-law. And I was part of Grandma Brenda Thursdays. And it all started with golf, because Bob's golf night originally was Tuesday. And so Brenda would come on Tuesdays because Bob's wife Patty, my sister, worked late, and the boys were all left alone or needed something to eat, and of course Brenda was stepping in. And it started out with takeout. It would be Wendy's or it would be Burger King or whatever. But pretty soon, my mother, who is deceased, was jealous that there was something going on that she wasn't a part of. So she invited herself to join, because she thought Brenda needed somebody to have a glass of wine with while she was with the kids. So my mother started going and then said it would be a good thing if I would show up too, because then there would be 3 adults and the kids. And so, and then when Patty would get home, we would kind of continue to party. And pretty soon, Bob didn't want to miss it, so it got switched to a night when he wasn't golfing, so he could be there too, and my husband came. So that's how Grandma Brenda Thursdays evolved. And Brenda, of course, then started cooking, because the group was getting bigger and bigger. And it always got bigger. Sometimes the guys' friends would come. You know, they'd bring their friends home from school, and it was a party. We did that for over 20 years. And I know how close Bob's family was to Brenda, because they were in town all the time. And the boys used to, like, I don't know, Maria's note here, they would go over and spend the night with her just for entertainment. You know, she was just a good time. They enjoyed being with her. I know Emmett used to do it quite a bit when he was younger. It was, he and Brenda spent weekends together, and he'd spend the night. So she was everything everybody says she was, and more. And we love her and miss her so much. But she shines on, Dawn, like you said, in everything you see. Thank you. I tried to keep mine short so I could get through it, but I'm sorry. I'm gay now, or Nell, Brenda's daughter, and I just wanted to welcome everyone to Mom's celebration of life. And she was very specific that she did not want a funeral. She wanted a party, in every sense of the word. She
So we worked to give her that. She wanted happy tears, no sad tears, just happy tears for a beautiful white life well lived. And I know what you're saying, that Dad might be the one who knew her oldest, but I'm giving a shout out to my great Aunt Rose, who I hope is able to watch this, because she meant a lot to her too. And Rose will be 90 in September. So I wanted to say hello to her and her family and as many people that couldn't be here, because I know a lot of people really wanted to celebrate her life. I was trying to think how I would describe Mom's life, and to me, she was all about seeking joy and spreading joy. Mom just always saw the good and the light and the joy in everybody. And her life wasn't always easy, but she always was positive. And she just always believed that she could do anything. And I believed her too. And I'm grateful for that, that she can give that to all of us. And yes, Mom spread joy and showed love through food all the time. And it could be your special food that she made for you, just for you. There are KFC bowls tonight, so that came from Grandma Brenda Thursday as well. Or your Christmas goodie box that you couldn't wait to get, of course with our toffee. But she never left food to chance, as any good party planner knows, is make sure you have good food. And I moved to Crested Butte over 30 years ago, and it's a small mountain town, and we're all transplants. None of us have family in town, so we always had potlucks. Everyone just brought something, and Mom really struggled with potlucks. She didn't think that we could leave to chance that there might be all desserts or no dessert. So Mom made an entire meal. She'd make everything, and then what anyone brought was just kind of bonus. And then we had plenty of to-go containers. And so yeah, she also, in Colorado, everybody asked, when is Grandma Brenda coming? For rib nights with Cameron and Dylan's friends, or whatever it was. She just always showed us how special we were. So I just want to thank everyone for coming and sharing their memories and love for her, and just a cheers to a life well lived.
Thank you. Now, more and more, we're all becoming aware of what a vast imprint Brenda has left in this world. Would anyone else like to share? Would you like the mic brought to you?
Yeah, that would help.
Okay, good.
I may be the oldest person in the room, I'm not sure, but I think Brenda was, I know, she was one of the nicest people I have ever known. And I'm very happy that my nephew had enough sense to marry her daughter. And Meg and I will probably forever miss her toffee. I think I got the last can from her house before she moved to North Carolina. And I'm not sure I'm going to eat it. I may keep it in her memory. But it's been my pleasure to know her. And John's good fortune to become part of that family. I'll miss her. And I maybe only saw her once a year. But she was so large. Not physically, but she just was. She was a wonderful woman. And you were lucky to have her for a mother.
Beautiful, yes. Would anyone else like to share?
So I'm Kate, the Caitlin that John mentioned, and Grandma Brenda wasn't really my grandma. She was more like a pseudo grandma to me. There's no blood relation, but we spent every Christmas at her house, and she did really share her love through food. And my all-time favorite memory of her cooking is Seth had a all-vegetarian wedding, which the Regan men were really struggling through that, and we showed up to the house afterwards, and I don't even know when she did it, but Brenda had cooked an entire spread of every dead animal we could possibly want to eat, and we went home and pigged out after that.
Anybody else? Don't you love hearing all the Brenda stories? Oh, this is wonderful. If not, we will move into our closing song.
Thank you for ending on a funny note, because it's really hard to sing after all of that.
I come to the garden alone while the dew is still on the roses, and the voice I hear falling on my ear, the Son of God discloses, and he walks with me, and he talks with me, and he tells me I am his own, and the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has
Before we close, I want everyone to be aware that the service has been live streamed, but also recorded, so it can be watched by anyone from this point on. And the way to watch that is to go into YouTube under our channel, which is under SLC Troy, which stands for Spiritual Life Center Troy. If you need help on that, just get in touch with a family member or one of us, and someone can find the way to do that. In closing, we want to share a poem. And in doing so, we invite you, if you're comfortable, to close your eyes and picture that Brenda is speaking directly to you. It's called "To Those I Love and Those Who Love Me." When I am gone, release me. Let me go. I have so many things to see and do. You mustn't tie yourself to me with tears. Be happy, we had so many years. I gave you my love, and you can only guess how much you gave to me in happiness. I thank you for the love you have shown. But now it's time I traveled alone. So grieve a while for me, if grieve you must, then let your grief be comforted by trust. It's only for a while that we must part, so bless those memories in your heart. I won't be far away, for life goes on. So if you need me, call, and I will come. Though you can't see or touch me, I'll be near, with all my love around you, soft and clear. And then, when you must come this way alone, I'll greet you with a smile and welcome you home. This concludes our service for Brenda. Her family invites you to enjoy the food and refreshments and welcomes the chance to meet you.